webinar, we're taking a deep dive into legacy leadership, the philosophy, the model, and the proven process for bringing out your best, developing great leaders in your organization, and positively impacting your bottom line. My name is Asia, and I will be your host. Today's webinar will last about an hour as we have lots of great things to discuss today. Immediately following today's webinar, we will be sending you the presentation slide deck for your reference, so keep an eye out for that email. Also, we want to see your questions and comments throughout the webinar, so feel free to type them into the questions box on your dashboard. Our presenters, Brenda and Gary, will answer as many of your questions as they can during our Q&A session at the end of the presentation. Any questions that we can't get to will be answered after the webinar and shared with you all in an email next week. So all of us here have at least two things in common. We all have a job, and we all want to perform at our highest potential. We all know the common tips for being your best at work, such as working hard, acting professionally, taking initiatives, and expressing positive attitudes. And we can all agree that this is just the beginning of a list of qualities for being a great leader. But how can we really enhance those qualities to become the very best that we can for ourselves and then for those around us? Leadership best practices, when executed correctly, have a positive impact on those working with and around you on a daily basis. Today, you are going to be introduced to materials that are going to help you do just that. So if after the webinar you are ready to implement legacy leadership into your organization, we have a great product for you to get started. It is the Legacy Leadership Facilitator Set. It is a comprehensive training package that includes assessments, workbooks, and a one-day workshop. The assessments evaluate leader strengths and weaknesses in the 5 best practices that we will be learning about today. The special offer we have for you is 25% off, and more details will be coming to you at the end of the presentation. So one of our presenters today is Brenda Chaddock. She is a world-class speaker, facilitator, mentor, and teacher who brings years and layers of education and experience in people development. With a background in nursing, adult education, and life and health mastery, Brenda has worked privately, publicly, and with government and corporate clients, both nationally and internationally, for the past 40 years. Alongside Brenda is Gary Patterson. He brings extensive organizational development experience after working in various organizations for over 25 years. These included the United States Armed Forces, nonprofit organizations, and hospitals. Gary's approach to leadership is one of passion and calling. He has a strong desire to help organizations successfully engage great futures with compassionate care towards people. So welcome, Brenda and Gary. Thanks for being here with us today.
So thank you, Asia. This is Brenda. I am speaking to you from Vancouver, British Columbia. Thank you for coming. With my colleague Gary at the Odyssey Leadership Center, we'll be your co-facilitators for this session and for the Institute, should you choose to join us, and we'll talk more about that in a little bit. We're also joined by our technology lifeguard and associates, Asia and Sarah from HRDQ. Now, the lovely thing is I'm in Vancouver, BC. Gary is in San Antonio, Texas. And then I believe Asia is in Ohio and Sarah is in Pennsylvania. So we are truly a remote team welcoming you today. So let's just look at our purpose of the session. Let's always begin there. And so during this time together today, we will give you an opportunity to learn the components of legacy leadership and how they actually optimize business results. We'll give you an overview of the tools that can bring out your best, and as Asia said, the best in others. That is our triple thumbprint way of leading, is leaders developing leaders, and see how we can inspire and empower people and make legacy leadership a life-changing learning adventure, which we do at both home and work. So we'll also have a look at other models and approaches of leadership, because everything, whether it's, and Gary will talk about this in a little bit, everything you've ever learned about leadership, and I'm a pack rat, I never want to throw anything away, can actually reside beautifully inside the Legacy Leadership Framework. So with that, I'm going to pass along to Gary, who is going to lead us through a little capture of who is here with us today, and more importantly, where are you calling from? So good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night, wherever you are, and Gary's going to find out wherever you are.
So good morning or afternoon, and I'm glad to be with you today. Thank you for that introduction, Brenda and Asia, and I'm glad to be with everybody today and excited about what we'll be accomplishing and going over in the next hour or so. But first of all, before we do anything, we want to get an opportunity for you to introduce yourself and add your location of where you're participating from to the session. And so what we'd like for you to do today is use the question box to the right. And so if you would just start right now entering where you're joining us from. I see Macon, Georgia. I see Northern Ohio, Irvin, Texas. We're both Texans. Virginia Beach, Chicago, Washington, Tennessee, Ontario.
Wow.
And I could keep on going on, and so it's just going on and on today. So we see that we have folks who are here from all over the country. And Canada also, Brenda, there's some Canadians that are joining us today as well. Minneapolis,
Yay.
Minnesota, and so on. So we have folks who are here from all over the country, and so we're glad to have all of you here to join us today. So the first thing I'd like to do is have you to reflect about what your greatest challenge is around leadership. What your greatest challenge is around leadership. And if you would, in the similar way that you just did that, would you put in the chat box one or two of your greatest, I say three on the screen, but let's do one or two of your greatest challenges. I see building trust with others also showing up right now from Cincinnati, Ohio. Trust is an issue that comes up. Staying motivated, delegation, increasing morale, inspiring others. They're going so fast. Motivating, communication, being clear, change. Let's see what else is happening there. Having time. They're going so fast I can't read all of the bullets, so I won't even try, but thank you. Consistency is one that's there. Communication, finding a common goal, communication, knowing and moving between work and play. And so we see all of those coming in, but one thing that we all have in common is that we come to the leadership task with those challenges. Before we start today, let me get you to focus on what we mean when we talk about the definition of legacy leadership. I'll read this because I want to emphasize certain words there. Legacy leadership is a philosophy, first of all, then a model and a proven process for bringing out your best and developing the best of others in your organization and positively impacting your bottom line. So that's the definition of legacy leadership that we're working in right now. And so we talk about our context for leadership. Over our time together today, here's what we want to take a look at. First of all, Brenda's going to take us through how did legacy leadership get formed by the principals, Lee Smith and Janine Sandstrom. Secondly, we'll look at the model itself. I'm going to go over the colors. Brenda always allows me to do that, and I'm going to do that today. And then we're going to look at a little bit, even before we start, at how leadership shows up in our business environment today. And then finally, we'll talk about these critical success skills. We'll only scratch the surface there, but we do want to show you and expose you to the entire system. Read the first part of this bullet, and I want to focus on the bottom part of this bullet because Frances Halsby was asked the question, what were the challenges that leaders would face in the new millennium? And she says these three major challenges CEOs will face, having little to do with managing the enterprise's tangible assets and everything to do with monitoring three things: leadership, workforce, and relationships. And I think that's where legacy leadership meets our time together today, because those three elements are what legacy leadership answers to. If we look out in the world today, we see these things happening. Change is constant. Reality is a moving target. For those of you who have seen Who Move My Cheese. I love that little video and the little book that goes along with it, because it really talks about what happens when we get stuck in today and not consider tomorrow. Emotional and social intelligence is an imperative for leaders to show up with today, because it impacts relationship and especially power in those relationships. And we all know how millennials show up and how they relate to those relationships. And then we want to talk about the best practices in leadership action. So with that being said, I want to punt to my colleague, and she's going to tell us how Legacy Leadership was started and introduce you to our principles for today.
So thanks, Gary. This is Brenda back, and let's look at where did legacy leadership actually come from. And you'll see here on this slide, Dr. Janine Sandstrom and Dr. Lee Smith, who had been master executive coaches for many, many years, and they were watching very closely the most common behaviors of successful leaders. So in the interest of, you'll see on my website, if you have been to Odyssey, start anywhere, go where it leads. Well, Lee and Janine actually started on a train in the UK, writing their thoughts down on napkins, which they then came back and gave to the person who did most of the writing for them. So you can actually start anywhere. And the Legacy Leadership Program was developed as a map for ensuring excellence in leadership practice. What they really noticed was what seemed to be glaringly absent from many other leadership approaches is that whole idea of responsibility and accountability. It starts with vision, how do people work together, very important to the model, and ultimately, how do we know that we're doing the right things and going in the right direction? So you'll see here again a definition. It may sound like we're being a bit repetitive, and this is kind of what it's all about. So living your legacy, being first and then doing. Gary's going to talk about that in a moment, and it's based on the 5 practices which we also call legacy practices. So we'll see here in this model, I think, next slide. Yeah, they made it as simple as possible, what they call a 5-box design. So all 5 practices are very clearly seen. It's very simple, it's very clean, and you're always focusing on one practice at a time. So we're going to take you now to a poll. If you've experienced polls before, this is a matter of choosing something and voting. So holder of vision and values, creator of collaboration and innovation. So how do we create and who do we create with? How do we influence inspiration and leadership? How do we advocate for differences on our team and the community that we are? And finally, as I just spoke to, how can we be a calibrator or a measurer of responsibility and accountability? So going to this poll now, what I would like you to do, I would invite you to do, is to choose which of these best practices would you consider your greatest strength. And because we can actually have strengths in more than one area, we've made this kind of a multiple choice. So if there's more than one that applies to you, you're both a holder and an influencer, something like that, you just tick off all the boxes that you'd like. If you think you're strong in everything, you can probably hang up and go have coffee. So in any case, we're totally loving having you here and have you choose more than one if it suffices, and we'll get back and look. Asia will be counting the votes and letting us know when you're done.
We still have a few more coming in, so okay. I'll let it go for about 10 more seconds.
Thank you. This is the part where we feel like a rocket ship. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2. Oh, there we go. We're launched.
I know. All right, I'm going to close the poll so we can go ahead and see what we've got.
Okay, so we have almost half the group who feels they already have a strength as being a holder of vision and values. That is just marvelous. And creator of collaboration and innovation. This is very much about a trust space for making it safe for your people to innovate. Again, almost half to influencer of inspiration and leadership, marvelous. And then advocator of differences in community and creator of responsibility, those are a little bit lower. And it may also be that you haven't had enough familiarity with the model yet to know that you may even be stronger there than you know. So let's us go to a next poll. We love to have you involved as much as possible. So the next poll is about growing edges. Legacy leadership is very much a focus on the best and the growing rather than focusing on some gaping wound that's crippling your company. What we put our attention on grows. So after we identify strengths, we like to look at which, if you would put even a little bit more emphasis on, could make a difference of making your company, organization, team go from good to great. Now this time we're going to ask you to only choose one, which would be where you would focus their first learning, I will say, of legacy leadership. So again, the 5 best practices, which you can see, go ahead and choose one, and then Asia can tell us when we're ready to have a look.
Yep, they keep coming in, so I'll go for about another 15 seconds because it seems like people are still answering.
Fabulous. We love polling because it's and we use this a lot in our programs because it's a very quick way to just get a snapshot or a pulse check of where people are. So in this case, we're doing it by asking these questions, and other times we would use it for an understanding. So so the 50% who are already doing well, vision and values, only 9% are feeling that they need to put a lot more emphasis there. Creator, a quarter of the group. Influencer, a quarter of a group. Advocator of differences in community. It's a little bit of a tricky one to explain, and we will do that in the series. So it may be either you already have a strong team with unique strengths, or it could be that there's more that you'd like to learn about that. And calibrated responsibility and accountability, almost 30%. That's awesome. Thank you. So we've now made visible both your strengths and your best possibilities for strengthening your leadership. And Gary's now going to take you into a further look at the model and how it compares with other leadership approaches. So thanks. And Gary, virtual mic.
Thank you, Brenda. Over the years, Brenda and I have often debated on whether we would talk about the colors and give their explanations or not, but Brenda has accommodated me each time, and so that I can talk about the colors. Lee and Janine were meticulous about their selection of the colors, and they went to great lengths to marry the practices up with the metaphors around the colors. For an example, consider best practice 1 in its color of yellow. It's obvious that any trip starts with a direction or a goal or a dream, and it starts with what we call a vision that is followed up by action. Illumination comes to my mind as I think about yellow, in that it projects somewhat of a yellow brick road, so to speak, of intended direction and a projected accomplishment. Doctors Lee and Janine both use the word sunny in their description, in that it shines the light of the sun on any direction that one is taking. As leaders, we have to illuminate a path for others to follow and be able to influence them to travel along that mutual ownership. In best practice 2, they move on to blue, which points to the sky, and I see endless possibilities of innovation and calibration. We'll talk about that a little bit later on as we go forward. They also chose red for best practice 3 because their belief was that leadership must start in the heart and the being of the leader, along with competent knowledge following. BP4 starts with green, and it has green, and it projects the element of growth in both people and organizations. And the model is rounded out in best practice 5 with the color purple, which there's a movie there. I thought about that, Brenda, as I thought about that, indicating the color of royalty. And I think that of conclusion or pulling it all together in accomplishment. Since I'm from Texas, they have a phrase down here that said, get her done. And so that's the get her done best practice followed up by royalty. So as we look at that, you can see where these colors are married up to the functions in which they're going to do. In addition to the colors that we're talking about, Lee and Janine also gave birth to this model out of the chart, of somewhat the chart that you can see below you. You can't really see all of that chart, but I'll just have a few things to say about that. When they devised this model, what they did was they noticed, first of all the models that were currently in the world during that day, this is 20 years ago when they wrote this, you could see those models that were alive at that time, and they were the popular models that were popular, more, not models, but maybe theories of leadership at that time. And you can see through that graph that they noticed that there were holes inside of some of those models, and that the models tended to speak to the issue of what leaders do, but did not bring to the presence what leaders are when they come to the task of leadership. And so what they did was they tended to take all of those theories and try to compose a model so that the model would represent a system of leadership that was composed of patching up all of the holes that they observed in the model. And you see that reflected in the chart as much as you can see. And so when they came up with this model, you can see that each one of the best practices ends up having 3 elements that are involved in that practice. And so you see BP1 has holder, vision, and values. So the first thing we want to look at is the word, what we mean by the 2 words, the words being versus doing, and the word legacy. So I'd like to kind of walk through both of those and talk about those, because when they patched up what I call the holes there, they were first of all talking about being and then doing. So when you look at the model, you'll see first of all that the model starts out with the first word in each best practice, holder, and then it says of vision and values. So the being word is in the first element of each one of the best practices. So in that being word, you say being a holder, or being a creator, or being an influencer, or being an advocate, or being a collaborator. I mean, calibrator. I always get that mixed up, Brenda. And calibrator. And I believe that the values of the leader are captured in the being elements before they start doing. And that's what's illustrated on the chart right now. And so once the being element is emphasized in the leader, then they show up and do the other 2 functions, being holder, and then the focus on vision and values. It's interesting that values would be listed as a part of doing. And I think what's emphasized there is that when you are holding the values, it means that you are actively doing something about that value. So it turns up as a work. There's in the book, you'll read Lee and Janine, or Lee specifically, I think it was Lee, you tell me if I'm right, Brenda, but Lee says that she was working with a leader one day and she asked him, do you have a vision and values for your company? He says, well, yes, I do. Well, would you tell me what they are? He says, well, no, I've got them in my wallet. And so he pulls out his wallet and he picks up his vision and his values and he read them to Lee. And when Lee heard them, she says, so you're sitting on your vision and sitting on your values. And so she kind of chuckled about that. And as they talk about that, it does speak to the issue. Do people show up with holding the vision and the values and knowing them as a part of what they do as an element of leadership, rather than having them in their pocket and sitting on them, as you know happens so much of the time? And so when you look at the issue of legacy, we looked at being and doing in terms of each best practice. Legacy is a little bit different in that, and I'll read this, legacy in the legacy leadership model is not about building things. It's about building people. It's about investing in individual leaders who then share what they have learned with others. So legacy is seen in this perpetuating cycle of leadership and development that enables your personal or your organizational plan to come alive and thrive as you invest in other people. And so looking over my shoulder, what I just said, I want to emphasize being and doing in each of the best practices, that the leader shows up being who he or she is, first of all, before they start doing what it is they are to do. Secondly, followed by the idea of legacy. It's not legacy when we die and we leave a legacy, but rather legacy that is operational in real time, and by one bump or leadership aspect with another person at a time. So with that as a backdrop, Brenda, why don't you take us into our next phase?
Thanks, Gary. Really lovely. And do let us look at, as strengtheners, what other kind of tools, because I've been practicing legacy leadership both at home and away. I have tested it every place. Every person in my family has attended a Legacy Leadership Institute somewhere. And I really, when I first got introduced to this model, thought, well, is there a place where it actually doesn't work? And the only places that I've noticed that it doesn't work is in what I think of as command and control organizations, where there actually isn't any desire to include people. People are just kind of meant to do what they're told. So what we do is we really like to add some tools to our kit by choosing other things that will help us strengthen our learning of leadership. And what I would like to do, if I can have next slide, Gary, about one-page plan would be awesome. So these critical success skills, I think what Gary was referring to is, while the model itself is very simple, very easy to see, 5 best practices, actually it deepens so that inside each best practices, there are 10 behaviors which show us what we are actually doing in that best practice. So I don't know if any of you happen to be one-page business plan people and know Jim Horan. Jim was the founder of the one-page business plan, a retired financial executive, and now has probably a dozen books and certified one-page business plan practitioners literally all over the world. So what Jim invited us to do was to also keep every vision has a beginning. Again, I say start anywhere, follow where it leads. Where are we beginning? So the vision opportunity is to make it as simple as possible and not be working on a white paper. So Gary, may I have the next slide, please? So the one-page plan answers 5 key questions. The first is, what are we building? And that can be a 3 to 5 year window. The second is, why are we building it, which is timeless. It is your commitment and your promise to your customers or your clients. Objectives, what will we measure? That's kind of back to BP5. How do we know if we're actually accomplishing our vision? Strategy is, how will we build it? And you're all familiar with strategic planning, I'm sure. And then plans, what's the work to be done? And we think of this as where the rubber hits the road. We have to actually put down on paper, what are we going to do and by when? So we thought it would be kind of fun, actually, to have you have an opportunity to write a vision statement. And so here's how it goes. It's just a literal fill in the blanks, and as much as you know, great, and then it also can uncover maybe what you don't know. So this sentence says, within the next however many years, usually we go somewhere from 2 to 5, grow whatever your company name is into what's your financial vision, what would your annual sales be, and then what's your scope? Are you working in your city? Are you working regionally? Do you have a national responsibility or an international responsibility? What are 2 or 3 of your key products and services that you would like to make known to your clients? And then who are your clients? So what we would like to invite is take a couple of minutes, give a think, hope you have a pen and paper, write this down, and we will actually send this template out if you're a person who says, oh no, I can't even think that quickly. If you can, then by all means, see how you do it completing this sentence, and we'll watch in the questions box for what people say. We need some Jeopardy music or something. Asia, do you have that?
No, I should have thought about it, though. That would have been a good thing to include.
Well, I can just hum it then. Do, 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 do. Actually, I should just be quiet so people can think.
Yeah, they need to concentrate.
Absolutely. So there's going to be quiet time for a couple of minutes, so please don't feel like you've dropped off the call. We're just allowing you the space to write. And tuck it in the questions box whenever you're ready.
We have an attendee asking if you can go to the previous slide.
Oh, fine and dandy. Sure, by all means. Which would be, oh, I see. Okay, so this person wanted to see what are the 5 key questions. Yeah, it's kind of putting you on the spot a little bit to ask you to write a vision statement in such quick time. Although even in a room, it's always been surprising how much information people have inside their heads, and just jotting it down only takes a couple of minutes. So let's leave you about 1 more minute more. It's too many mores in a sentence. And okay. We're not a sales company, so I'm not sure how to answer this, since it would be more of a growth and improvement of services. That's Regina. Is this in reference to the one-page plan, to the vision statement? Okay, let me see if I can follow that. Yeah, the questions box seemed to be a little bit kind of mixed up. It's not in alphabetical order, and some of the comments are being mixed with people's names, but let's see how we do. I see, actually, as you're writing, one comment from Jack Jennings that says, converting from the business world to academia. And that, I love that, because it's kind of the reverse. Usually we're trying to move from what's the theory to what's the actual practice. So this is just kind of a reverse challenge. Oh, I don't quite understand this, Asia. It says the first slide was 1 to 5 and the other was 6 to 10. It was the same 5, so sorry if we confused you.
Yeah, for anybody that's having a little trouble with the slides, you guys will all get these slides today. We're going to send these to you in an email so you can reference them. After the webinar, and then you can contact Brenda and Gary directly so they can help clear up any confusion that may be going on right now just with the slides and all the information. So we're there to help.
And someone is saying, sorry, I'd like to see the 2 slides that were skipped. Oh, okay, fair enough. Somebody wants to know everything. And this is often about virtual facilitating, is kind of facilitating on the fly and giving you only what we think will be most important to you. So having done that, if you did, I don't see anything actually in the questions box of people offering an example of their their vision statement, and that's completely fine. So just know that along with the slides that Asia just spoke about, or the handouts, that we will for sure send you this vision statement template so you can just do this in your own time. And I've been a one-page practitioner. I simply love it. It's your top 1% of communication, so you're not handing somebody your your functional binder. And I've been doing this work since 2004, in addition to the leadership development. So I'm always double delighted to talk to anyone about that. So now, why don't we just go ahead and have a look at what the one page looks like when it's done. So that would be next slide, Gary, thanks. So here we are, and pardon me, when we do virtual facilitation and using slides, we like to follow the rule of 5 by 5. So 5 words per line, 5 lines per page or per slide. So how badly have we broken this rule? Just do want to let you know what the completed business plan looks like, so it's all on one page. And maybe what we'll do is we will also send you a copy of this template, and anyone who wants to go further with one page is quite welcome to do so, and I'm happy to talk with you about that. So now I'd like to pass the mic back to Gary, who will be talking with us about what gets measured gets done. And we're all about tools here. So we're not tool time, but we're all about tools that will reinforce the effectiveness of what we're doing. So Gary's going to talk with you about the Legacy Leadership Competency Inventory.
Thank you, Brenda. I appreciate the one-page business plan afresh. Many of us have heard the statement, what gets measured gets done. So how can that apply to leadership, we might ask ourselves? Can the effectiveness of our leadership be measured to see how we're doing or to identify areas in which we can improve? The Legacy Leadership Competency Inventory does just that, and it identifies our competencies, it details our strengths, and it can illuminate our challenges. The instrument enables us to identify where shifts can be made, and then we can turn around and measure the strength of those shifts as we move and take the competency. The inventory can be taken in 3 different ways. One is the LLCI booklet, which is a booklet form. We have that available that you can take. The electronic form you can take right now. You see it on the screen from HRDQ. And then we have another comprehensive online 360 that can come directly from Limitless Leadership International that one can take. So we can see that we have exhaustive tools in order to do the measurement of our leadership. The electronic form from HRDQ costs $25 and can be taken as a standalone product. We recommend that you take it after this session today. And the booklet form is used in what we call the LLVI and the resident courses. Now that we've taken a look at that form, I want to talk about the LLVI. And in the next slide, I'll also address what we call the Resident Institute courses as well. But the LLVI is an institute that's a 6-week course, and it unfolds each best practice per week with an introduction for the first week session. The best practices are then unpacked in the order on the screen, which serves as an organic order rather than a progressive one. In other words, you see it's 1, 5, 3, 2, 4 rather than 1, 2, 3, 4. We'll explain the reasons for that in the Institute, but for now, we just want you to know that after the 6 sessions, there are 6 what we call integration calls to integrate the best practices. These integration calls are for the purpose of interacting with the critical success skills that we kind of skipped through above, and if we have some time, we'll go back and take a look at those because we just simply alluded to them, of each best practice, and to serve as a model for how the system can be used as an ongoing leader development strategy for oneself or the people that you lead. As stated before, the legacy leadership model is one where behavior is the object of shift, so that that progress that is obtained is also sustained and elevated. So looking at the institutes, we have 2 ways that we present, as you see on the screen. One is what we call the residence. The resident is presented in a 2 or 3-day certification course, and Brenda's going to talk about when we'll be doing that as we get to the end. There is also a 4-day certification trainer course that enables one to be certified in the 2 and 3 day course, and then the final day is for those who want certification to be able to present legacy leadership, much like we're doing today. The other course, of course, is we just talked about that in the bullet before this, is what we call the LLVI certification, which you see there is 6 weekly sessions followed by 6 weekly integration calls. And so that's what the Institute looks like overall. So when you put it all together in the journey, you can see that the process of the journey is there. So so we're looking at the competency inventory, the 6 90-minute sessions of the LLVI, the 60-minute sessions that follow up in the interactive with the workbook, followed by mentoring. And what Brenda and I always avail ourselves to be as mentors in the process as a whole. And so that is about the LLVI and the Institute resident courses. I'd like to turn our attention now to what we call the resources that are available for legacy leadership, and you can see that they're vast. First of all, we have the Legacy Leadership, the Leader's Guide to Greatness, which is the basic book for legacy leadership. Then we have the model cards, which are usable as an instrument that could be on your desk daily or that people can carry around, so that legacy leadership is always demonstrated in a form that they can utilize readily. Then we have what we call the focus workbook. The focus workbook is what we use in the integration calls so that we can embed or integrate the learning in each best practice in a practical and functional way. And then we have the competency inventory that we just talked about a few minutes ago. In addition to that, there are 4 other things that are available. The participant workbook is when you take the resident course for certification, that participant workbook is what is used to be able to work our way through so that the learning is captured in that workbook. There's a faith-based version of legacy leadership for those who may be Christian and want to use it in their church, and so we have a faith-based version. The 360 is a 360 that can be ordered from Limitless Leadership, and it's available as well. And then finally, the competency inventory in the booklet form. And so those are your resources for legacy leadership. Let me pull back to this slide and talk about Facebook. Brenda and I have put together Facebook, which is a support community for legacy leadership for those who are certified. And so we have that available too as a platform for discussions. Brenda and I typically in the Facebook, we offer readings and post readings about legacy leadership so that the learning is ongoing. And then finally, we have what we call facilitator learning partners, and we'll talk about that right now. Whenever we have either a resident course or the LLVI, the virtual course, we assign what we call leader learning partners within the course, so that the leader learning partners, they communicate together on cutting edges and discoveries that they're making in their leadership growth along the way. And so this partner walks together with them through the Institute of 2 or 3 days, or in the LLVI, but those leader partners walk along with the learning partner through all that they're learning. And we hope by having that relationship in the Institute or in the LLVI, that relationship will continue beyond their time in terms of legacy leadership. So with that in mind, looking at the resources, I'd like to turn it back over to Brenda, where she'll give us our reflections and take us out for the day. Thank you.
Thank you, Gary, and beautiful weather in Sovereign, Texas.
Yes.
Well, we are actually having a peaking of sunshine here in Vancouver, British Columbia. So I've really enjoyed looking at where everybody is calling from, and it's always fascinating, and it's why I love the remote life. Just want to make a comment about the availability of resources, as Gary has gone through them. If you go to HRDQ, choose Store, choose Legacy Leadership, you will find almost all of the Legacy Leadership materials available to you there. It's been our great honor to work together with HRDQ and to be able to play our part in facilitating programs, and then they play their part in providing published and printed materials that are very, very easy for you to access. So you want to just jot down that HRDQ Store Legacy Leadership, and that will take you to the legacy resources. And then we can get together with you either live or in virtual space. So in the reflection of what we've done today, we see that there is a very big difference between being a leader and doing leadership. And being whoever we are is where we take ourselves in the world. And so that's really the thing that we want to focus on first. The 5 best practices model, I know that one of the questions was, how effective is this model in the current generation? I do find I get a bit dizzy with X, Y, millennials, boomers. So that's my personal reflection. And what I seem to be continuing to know as I question people in my life is, where does this model land and be sound? And I believe that it's equally effective for a millennial company, if I can call it that, as with the boomer companies. So I think I say that with some confidence. It's often just the language that you need to be careful of. And that's what we're always working on, that we're speaking in a language that is relevant to the people that we're with. So that's about how is it critical to today's business climate, and knowing that leadership is not a standalone. We can live an intentional legacy every day with everyone we come in contact with, and they see our behaviors. I mean, it's not just what comes out of our mouths, is who are we acting as and walking as in the world. And we looked at leadership challenges. So we'd like to take a few minutes to answer your questions. So we've seeded a couple here because we don't know what questions you might have. So first of all, what would you need to know that would empower you to take the next step in your own leadership journey? And how might legacy leadership galvanize this process for you? And if you were to consider next steps, what would you need to know? Know that at the end of this slide presentation, and you'll have it in the handouts, very easy to access contact information, both telephone and email, to Gary and me. And just interested to hear, are there questions or comments that you would like to make on this session today?
All right, I have one, Brenda.
Uh-huh.
We have one coming in. It says, how can the legacy leadership best practices shift your present leadership behavior?
How can the 5 best practices shift your leadership behavior? I'm going to say it can only be with your learning and your experience, because in this, what we call triple thumbprint of leaders developing leaders, marking your own leadership development would be the first place to start. And so this whole kind of triple thumbprint also goes to the one-page business plan. Is if you are the head of your own organization, and I see that some of you are, you can start with your own business plan and then bring in your executive level, your management level, whoever, so that all of your planning is in alignment, top down, horizontally across peers. It's quite wonderful. So it is a kind of and I hope I've answered the question. If not, then please present it again.
Okay, we have Mac asking a question. It says, holder of vision, interested in the virtual training. You mentioned 6 weeks. How many hours per week, and what is the cost?
Okay, so thank you. Complex question, quite lovely. So it will be 6 weeks, 90-minute sessions. We actually haven't landed on our dates because we're having some questions about who's available when. I'm going to start by saying that the LLVI, which is short form for Legacy Leadership Virtual Institute, will begin toward the end of May, and it will be 6 times 90 minutes. So we do have a slide of that, and when you get your handout, you'll see that again. So 6 times 90-minute sessions, and then after our learning is done, we follow up with integration calls 6 times 60 minutes. Because what we find is that, gosh, we go and learn things, and then as soon as we're out the door, the book or the whatever is on the shelf and we just lose it. So we really try to stay with you while you're integrating your learning. The cost is $19.95 in USD because everybody else's currency seems to be flopping around. Yeah, and that's fully available to you. So Asia, was that the answer to all those questions?
Yeah, I think so.
Thank you. I'm not seeing these questions for some reason, so thank you for being there with me.
Yes, he said it did answer the questions, so that is good. Let me see if I have any more in here. Here's another one that came in throughout the presentation. How can you see using the Legacy Leadership System to impact your organizational culture?
Can you repeat that, please?
How can you see using the Legacy Leadership System to impact your organization culture?
Okay. I mean, there can be a focus on the whole model. I must say that what attracted me to Legacy Leadership initially was not about vision and values. It was really about best practice 2 is creating innovation and collaboration. And that doesn't mean you being the creator of anything, which is the boss. This best practice is all about you as the boss or the manager or whatever, creating a trust space for people to feel free to explore and create. It's just kind of a different approach. So I think that in itself might change the culture when people feel they're safe enough to come forward with a Post-it note idea that 3M is famous for. The other best practice that really galvanized me was advocators for difference in community. Because in the corporate, and I worked in corporate Canada, America, whatever, for many years, and there were a lot of times where there would be people on a team and their skills and their expertise were never uncovered because it was too busy just to get the job done. So one of the things that really attracted me was having this opportunity to uncover people's particular skills and make sure that they were there to strengthen the optimal offering of the team. So that's the differences and community. And you'll find that it will make an awesome difference, and people will feel so appreciated. So I hope that answers the question. Otherwise, please give me a call. And Asia, is there another?
I don't see any more right now, but they can go ahead and keep coming. If it pops in their head, they can go ahead and type it out. I'm going to go ahead and revisit our special offer that we have for our attendees today before people start dropping off. So here is the special offer on Legacy Leadership. It's a 25% off. So it's originally $187. It's now only $140, which is awesome. However, if the first 5 people who email me will actually get an additional 25% off, which is 50% off altogether. So if you want to email me at webinars@HRDQ-U.com, just go ahead and put in the subject line you're interested in the Legacy Leadership promo. We're going to go ahead and send you more information and get that started for you. So the coupon code for those that miss out on the first 5 50% off promos, you're going to go ahead and head over to HRDQstore.com and use coupon code LUP18. So all this information is actually in a handout right now. You can see it in your handout section on your dashboard. It's a little PDF that we just stuck in there for you, so you can go ahead and download that. If you miss that, we will actually be sending out these promo reminders to you via email. So there's no chance to forget about this awesome special. So thank you, Gary and Brenda. If you want to go ahead and say your closing remarks, and then I think we're good to go.
So Asia, does that special coupon apply to us if we're really, really fast?
No, Brenda and Gary are excluded from the offer.
Oh, gee. Okay. Well, we will stand aside and make way for the folks who want to join us in Legacy Land. So this is Brenda, and I just would like to say hello to you everywhere. I might have missed it, but I didn't actually see anybody that was on the other side of the world. It was mostly Canada and the U.S. And so bless you if you've got snow all over you. Temperatures are kind of crazy right now. And just thank you so much for your interest in legacy leadership, and really would look forward to speaking with you more. So with that, I will leave my esteemed friend and colleague, Gary, to say his goodbye. Very big thank you to Asia and Sarah, who've been with us on behalf of HRDQ. And yes, have a lovely day.
Thank you, Brenda. And before I drop my virtual mic, I wanted to just address one issue of a question I thought was very interesting, is how can you use legacy leadership to penetrate an organization, and how is it usable for that purpose? And I'd just like to give an experience of saying this, that we've used legacy leadership to train leadership up and down the entire organizations that we have penetrated. And the value that I find in being able to do that training is that everybody is aligned in the organization around a common language. So it comes to alignment around a common language about leadership, and everybody knows what they mean by the language within the system itself. The second thing it does, it impacts behavior. And so when it impacts behavior, those behavioral aspects are taught, and they can be emphasized in the training part of an entire organization. And then those being elements are also elevated to encourage people to be what they're doing. And so when it's fitted in an organization, I see that it impacts the entire culture, because everybody's involved in the training, everybody's involved in the learning, everybody has an aligned language around leadership, and it trains people in the art of leadership. And so I would offer that just as a closing thought. And with that in mind, I would like to thank everybody for the opportunity to share this awesome tool with you. I remember years ago when I first discovered it about 8 years ago, I made my pilgrimage all the way to Vancouver, Canada, to go and study this. And when I got there, I met a woman by the name of Brenda Chaddock, and I joined her there. But it's because I saw the value of how it fits in an organization and impacts culture that drove my journey toward the legacy leadership model. So thank you very much. I had a great time today, and thank you, Asia, for your time today as well.
Thank you. It was a pleasure. And you guys, I already have some emails coming in for that 50% off, so there's only a few spots left. Go ahead and, yes, I know, email me, webinars@HRDQ-U.com. And you guys have a great day. Look for some more upcoming webinars at HRDQ-U.com, and we will see you then. Bye, guys.
Thanks, everybody. Sorry we lost our spot, Gary.
That's okay.
Take care.